Okay, here's a new unit. We're going to be talking about quadratics. So make sure you guys are taking the notes. The packet should be on Google Classroom for you guys to print out. I hope everybody's doing well at home. Make sure you get this done before you meet tomorrow for your regular class time Zoom session. All right. So for graphing quadratics, the equation has to be an ax squared plus bx plus c. So you're going to see that. And it has an equation with a degree of 2. So I want you to think about that for a few seconds. And then I'm going to put up a question as to why you might think it has a degree 2. Okay, so for those of you who got it right, the equation has a degree 2 because its highest exponent would be a 2. Now, what that means is when we have a picture, it could possibly cross the x-axis 2 times maximum. That's it. All right. So the next thing you're going to see is that the graph is going to be called a parabola, and it's going to be U-shaped. Okay. So in this case, a parabola could be U-shaped, or it could be possibly upside down U. All right. The other thing is parabolas are function because they pass the vertical line test. So anytime that you have something that the x's don't repeat and it passes the vertical line test, that's going to work. All right. 2 types of parabola. If the a is positive, or what I mean by the a being positive is the first number. So if this first number, a, is positive, it's going to be a U-shaped going up. Okay, so it's going to look like that. Now, in that case, it means you're going to have a minimum point. This minimum point is sometimes called a vertex, but you could see that the minimum is the lowest point you're going to get. However, if that first number is negative, it's going to be an upside down U. And if it's upside down, it's therefore going to have a maximum point or a highest point. It's not going to have both a highest and a lowest point. Okay? All right. So in this case, we get the U, or the upside down U, and then on the parabola, you're going to see a line of symmetry that I drew called the axis of symmetry. Sometimes you're going to see it noted as the AOS, or the axis of symmetry. Sometimes you'll see this noted as the AOS, or the axis of symmetry. It's always a vertical line, and it's always going to go through the turning point. Now, this is not exact over here. This example over here, it's not exact, but it pretty much looks like the line is right down the middle, and that line, axis of symmetry, is right on the y-axis, and that is x equals 0. So for this case, our AOS, or our axis of symmetry, is x equals 0 for that one. Okay, how do you find it mathematically if you don't have a picture? Well, it's x equals negative b over 2a. So you have to go into the equation and find the middle term and negate it. Okay, your middle term, you're going to negate it and divide it by 2a, or 2 times the first term. You don't need the third term. All you need is the first and the middle. If there is no first or middle, obviously the answer is going to be 0. Okay, so what is the equation of the axis of symmetry of the parabola with negative x squared plus 6x plus 4? So here we go. I need negative b over 2a. By the way, it's always x equals, and think of what letter is inside of axis. Well, the letter that's inside of axis is the letter x. So it's always x equals, never y equals, because it goes straight up and down. So it's x equals negative b. So I'm going to write negative 6, because 6 is my b. All right, and my a is negative 1, and my b is 6. So I want negative 6 over 2 times -1. And that's going to give me -6 over -2. And -6 divided by -2 is -3. All right. So my axis of symmetry, or the line down the middle, would be on -3. Number 2, what is the axis of symmetry for -x² minus 2x minus 1? Give you guys a second for that one. And again, if you did it correctly, you should have done x equals -2. Okay, so it's -b. Well, b is -2, so -2, otherwise known as +2, over 2 times a, and a is -1. So it's really doing x equals +2 over -2, and that gives me -1. Remember, never pick the y's. You can cross those out right away. Axis of symmetry is always x equals. There it is. Okay, so that's the axis of symmetry, the line that splits it half left, half to the right. Could it be a decimal? Yes, but for this case, we've already gotten ones that are whole numbers. Can it be 0? Yes, it can be right down the middle. But sometimes it's left or right of center. So let's go to the second page. Turning point. Well, sometimes, as I said, we call it a vertex. Well, to find the turning point, you need to first find the axis of symmetry, which you do -b over 2a. Same thing you did last time. Then take that answer, put it back into the original equation, and find y. So you're going to write y equals something x² plus something x plus something. Now, when you get that answer, that is called your turning point, and that would be the highest or the lowest point on your graph. So for example, it might be this spot right up here. Okay, that would be your turning point, whereas the axis of symmetry is the line that splits it down the middle. Okay, so there's a difference between an axis and a point. So we were looking for the point. All right. Roots, or zeros, are the areas where it crosses the x-axis. So again, it's when y equals 0. And if you notice on this graph over here, where does it cross? Once, twice. So my zeros in that case are 2 to the left and 2 to the right. So we'll say my zeros are -2 and +2 are my zeros. Okay. So when you write them in a quadratic equation, what I want you to think of is it always has to be the opposite of what you had. So if you have the quadratic equation with zeros that are -5 and +8, very simple how you would write this. Don't worry about remultiplying it. Just write it as 2 sets of parentheses for now. So the way you would do this is, you see how we have -5 and +8? Well, we're just going to write the opposite. We're going to write x plus 5 times x minus 8 and set that equal to 0. And that's it. Now, if you want to multiply it, you can multiply it out and see what you get, but that is a quadratic equation. All right. If you were to multiply it out, you would get a +5 and a -8, which would combine to be, so again, I would do that box method, and eventually you would get a +5 and a -8 would give you a -3. When you multiply, you get -40. So that would be the other answer, but I don't need that from you. So at least understand how you would get that. Okay, so the turning point. Take the axis of symmetry. That would be your x coordinate, and then plug it back in to find the y. Now, how would you find it? Well, you could just find it on the graph right up here. So this turning point in this case would be that spot right there, which is 0 to the left and right and 2 up. So our turning point would be 0, 2. That's our turning point. Okay? All right, so we'll do some more with that in a future lesson. Couple of examples here, and then we'll stop. What are the coordinates of the turning point of the parabola whose equation is y equals x² minus 4x plus 4? this is the one that's going to take the longest amount of time. So first thing we need to do is find the axis of symmetry. So I'm going to use some area maybe to the left or to the right. But for the axis of symmetry, you need to do negative b over 2a. So in this case, I'm going to do negative 4. Hopefully you understand where I got that from, because b here is negative 4. So I'm going to take negative of that, opposite of that, and divide by 2a. Well, a in this case is a 1. There's an imaginary 1 in there. Okay? So negative 4 is positive 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So in this case, I get x equals 2. I'm going to write that over here, x equals 2. Now, I know that my answer cannot be 2, it cannot be 4. It has to be either 2 negative 4 or 2 0. So at this point, I'm just going to go back in the equation, and I'm going to use this area over here because I'm running out of space to plug a 2 back in. So y equals 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 4. Okay, and that's it. So let's figure it out. 2 squared is 4. 4, and then this would be negative 8. So 4 minus 8 plus 4. Well, that's negative 4 plus 4, which is 0. So my final answer is 2 comma 0. And that's how you would figure it out mathematically. Okay, 2 more equations. We have the zeros. Well, the zeros are where it crosses. Once, twice. See if you can figure out what those are. Okay, so those zeros are negative 1 and positive 4. So if you remember, the way I want you to do this is write the opposite. So it's y equals the opposite of negative 1 is positive 1 times the opposite of positive 4 is negative 4, and that's your answer. Okay, now if you want to multiply it out, you can. You do not have to. All right, so following that, I want you guys to guess the answer to number 3, which, again, you're picking the opposite. So think of the opposite. All right, so hopefully you guys understand what this is. We'll start drawing them out in the future. But for now, I just want you guys to see what that looks like. And then tomorrow we'll do some graphing of the axis of symmetry, minimum, maximum. So if you have a calculator, that would help. Take care, guys. If you want, I have the joke of the day. Some of you missed last week's, but I'll give you the one from Sunday. 19 and 20 got into a fight. 21. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. And I'll give you one from next week. This way you guys have an extra one. What's the leading cause of dry skin? Nope, not eczema. Dry towels. Take that one.